Hi guys, I'm going to talk about aggregate supply today. So first, what is the aggregate supply? The aggregate supply is total amount of goods and services that all industries in the economy will produce at every given price level. It is essentially the sum of the supply curves of all the industries in the economy. So now, I'm going to talk about why the short-run aggregate supply looks like microeconomic supply, and that is upward sloping. So there is a positive relationship between the price level and the amount of the output that the country's industries will supply. So you can see that relationships in this graph. So for example, so if the price increase into P1 to P2, you can see the increase in the output from Y1 to Y2. For example, I can give you in order to produce more, the companies have to provide incentives to the workers to produce larger amounts of the products. So this might increase the cost, and then for the output, there will be increase in output, which will be accompanied by an increase in the average cost. So the industries will pass on an increase in cost in the form of a higher price level. So this explains why the SRAS curve is upward sloping. And for this, it is really important to understand the word short run. So the short run is defined as the period of time when the prices of the factors of production do not change. Like, for example, the price of labor and the wage rate is fixed. And now, I'm going to talk about the shift in the SRAS. And there are some factors that might affect to shift in the SRAS. So one of it is the change in wage rates. So if the wage increase, then it will result in an increase in the cost of production to firm. So therefore, there would be a fall in the aggregate supply. And another one is the change in the cost of raw materials. So for example, if the price of raw material increase, then the cost will increase as well, which means then it will cause a shift left of the SRAS. And the another one is the change in the price of imports. This is kind of similar concept as the raw materials. So if there is a rise in import prices, then it will increase the cost of the production, which means that there would be change in the exchange rates of country's currency. So it will affect SRAS to shift up or down. And then the last one is the change in the government's indirect tax or subsidies. So if there's an increase in the indirect tax, so it will effectively increase the cost of the production to films. So therefore, the results, there would be fall in the SRAS curve. And now I'm going to talk about the long-run aggregate supply. So this is new classical LRAS. So for this, the economists think that there should be very minimum of government intervention in the allocation of resources in the economy, which is free market. So in this view, the long-run aggregate supply curve is perfectly inelastic or vertical. So we know as the full employment level of output. This full employment level of output represents the potential output that could be produced if the economy were operating at full capacity, and is annotated as YF on a microeconomic diagram. So for this graph, it is really important to highlights that full employment does not mean that there is zero unemployment, but this is kind of something that we will cover in more detail later. So, okay, now I'm going to talk about it. This view asserts that the potential output is based entirely on the quantity and the quality of the factors of production and not on the price level. Thus, the long-run aggregate supply is independent of the price level. This model is illustrated that the price level might rise from P1 to P2, but the level of output does not change.